Hey, Nerdy Sports Fan here, and we're giving out draft grades. So we're into the NFC East. We've already done Washington and the Giants, so let's get into these Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Jalen Reagor selection, I don't like as much as other people do. Now, I understand you have a need at wide receiver, and there's a lot of receiver talent in this draft. Yeah, you're right. And because of that, you can get highly rated wide receivers further down the board. Not to mention, I'm not really as high on Reagor as a lot of other people are. So I feel like there's not a heck of a lot of difference between him and like KJ Hamler, based off of their level of competition, their style of play, and what they were able to produce in terms of numbers. So drafting Reagor in the first, and take a look over at Denver, and they got Hamler in the third. So yeah, I think you could have waited if you were going to get a guy like Reagor. Some of the bigger guys that have had more productive careers at schools that we know are running more pro style offenses. Yeah, you could have gone the route of Justin Jefferson, which I think would have made a heck of a lot more sense. So, but Reagor does kind of match up with the Deshaun Jackson mold. So I kind of get it, considering he's the most likely to not return to form out of your injured wide receivers. Again, I only kind of get it. Now, into the second round, Jalen Hurts. Head scratcher. I don't understand putting that level of pressure on your starting quarterback this early in his career, this soon after just pulling the Brinks truck up to his house, in a season after he actually proved that he can do it all year. Yes, he got hurt in a playoff game, and his injuries towards the postseason have been notable. And people get hurt. All right, everybody gets freaking hurt. I just don't see the need for Jalen Hurts at that draft point. There's needs on the team that need to be addressed. And even if you felt Jalen Hurts was going to go, he's still a backup quarterback. And you could easily have found a backup quarterback a little later in the draft that actually mirrors what your quarterback does a little bit better than Jalen Hurts does. Jake Fromm comes to mind. And he went, the fifth round? So I don't get the Jalen Hurts pick. Doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm low on the Reagor pick. So not starting out good. Down from there, we have a kind of whatever pick in Davion Taylor. And now, linebacker is a position that's losing value in this league. You're seeing a lot more nickel and dime coverage being played, so you just don't need as many of them on the field. So you can get away with having fewer talented linebackers on the team. Not to mention, they're so dependent on the defensive line having effective play in order for them to be effective. So I think it's a whatever thing just because of those factors. And it's also difficult to gauge translation in college production to NFL production based off of those same factors. There's plenty of linebackers that ended up washing out in the league extremely quickly, but they looked great in college. Now, it's probably because they had great defensive lines in front of them. So you just don't know what these guys are going to end up being once they get to the league. It's less predictable than running backs. Running backs are not devalued because they can easily become washouts. They're devalued because they get hurt and they don't last very long. Linebackers are devalued because it's very difficult to scout these guys effectively in college because it's a very dependent position, and a lot of them wash out. A lot of them wash out. So I'm not really saying anything positive or negative about Davion Taylor. I'm just going to have to see what he does. Down from there, we have Kayvon Wallace. I actually really like the Kayvon Wallace pick. I think that he's going to be effective. I think that he's going to be good for the locker room. I think he has leadership potential, and he has the potential to develop into a serious starting safety for your franchise. Weapon X, Brian Dawkins, also feels the same. I understand he's an alumnus and a bit of a homer, so you take his opinion with a grain of salt, but it says something when somebody sticks their neck out for somebody else. And I happen to agree with him. So Driscoll is an all right pick at that position. Tackle is a position of need. I would have liked to have seen tackle addressed earlier. You need to replace Jason Peters. And if you're worried about injury concern with your quarterback, why not, instead of drafting his replacement, draft his protection? Driscoll coming at this late a position is really what worries me. You could have gotten a better tackle at an earlier position with one of the picks that you screwed the pooch on. So just the decision-making, the value, none of these things really line up well for me for Philly in this draft. After this, you're into the 5th, 6th, and 7th round, and these guys you can't hold a hell of a lot of value for a grade on. They're going to be much less likely to make the team. As much as I do like Hightower, I still recognize him as somebody he's got a long shot to make an NFL roster and make any sort of significant impact on an NFL roster. So the top end of the draft is really where the bulk of your grade comes from. And the top end of the draft had me scratching my head through most of it. I don't understand not addressing tackle earlier. I don't get drafting Jalen Reagor when you could have gotten a very, very similar profile player much later. Much later. And drafting Jalen Hurts instead of one of the other quarterbacks that's very likely to be a backup, where you drafted him just puts undue stress and pressure in the quarterback room in my mind. I'm giving the draft a D. I've graded half the teams already, and this is the lowest grade that I've given to this point. So, sorry, Philly fans. Nothing personal. Hit me up in the comments, though. Tell me what you think. If you wholeheartedly disagree with me, I really appreciate knowing. And, check out the rest of the videos. See what I'm saying about the rest of the teams. Because some other teams actually did well. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, guys.